What is going on, guys? Politics Gaming here, and today we are returning back to the United States of America for episode 10, the start of the election of 2020. So in this episode, we are actually going to be running through the election of 2020. This is going to be the presidential election, and I'm pretty certain that we can actually win this one. It would be pretty unfortunate if we actually did not win it, but in any case, we're going to go ahead and go through the next 306 days, and I'm going to try to run through this, make sure that we can actually do the election in this episode. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it, and I will see you guys in a second. Alright, so first off, actually, since we are doing this, I'm going to go ahead and skip over to the day to where we are actually going to announce that we are running for president, which should be very soon. Possibility to sabotage in that area. I'm going to go ahead and refuse that for now, and I'm actually going to do something myself. Let's go to cabinet. See, the Minister of Energy is actually missing, unfortunately. Let's go ahead and pick a new one. Let's pick it from our party. I'm gonna go ahead and put Anthony Buster in that position. Dick Derry, I wonder who he was beforehand. He was formerly the Secretary of Energy. For some reason, he actually resigned, so I am going to pick someone else. Go ahead and pick the bald man for that position, and let's do this, say no, and then increased risk to the Orion mission. So what I am actually going to go ahead and do today is we're going to come over here. We're going to go to construction. Actually, not construction. We're going to come over here to the budget, and we are going to start a pretty massive military buildup. We're going to start buying some military equipment in bulk. So if you have actually watched my tutorial on how to build up your military, this is going to be something that I'm going to demonstrate for you. So what I'm going to do is this, we're going to do 75 are already under contract. So we're going to do, let's do 20. It's going to be done 50420. So let's do that. And then fighter jets, we got tanks. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do another 20. So we're gonna do like a couple of these, and that's really what we're gonna do. So I'm gonna do this a couple of times and I'll return back. Alright, guys, and we finally finished that up. We spent probably at least $25 billion or more on our military, so that is going to probably be the largest military buildup that I am going to sign into a law. We are probably going to suffer a massive wave of protests and possibly rioting across the nation, so we are definitely going to be preparing for that. Let's go ahead and, in response, let's go ahead and ask for about 400,000 more police officers to the nation. That's going to cost us about $20 billion. So let's go ahead and institute that. That's going to raise our deficit slightly, but that is going to be the issue. So yes, we are definitely suffering several riots across the nation. We have them in Boston, Washington, D.C. We have them in Lexington, Fayette for some reason. We also have them in St. Petersburg, Florida, and Los Angeles, California. Let's go ahead and come over here. It looks like it's all the sects that are actually rising up against the government. Let's go ahead and ask the military to quash these rebellions in these cities. And let's go to Lexington. Let's go over there. Let's ask for military. We're asking for the military in most of these right now. We're possibly going to be suffering a little bit of a drop in our popularity, but we're going to be able to get that up back by the election. So this episode probably might actually just be me campaigning a lot, and just so it's not that boring, you may be seeing a couple of skipping here and there, so just bear with me on that. Major advance, we have a scientific discovery. We have the opportunity to get rid of Valissi Slutin, and we're going to go ahead and refuse that opportunity right now. We're going to go ahead and start just dealing with these riots right here. We're going to wait for the military to actually respond and get rid of these riots. So hopefully the military does get it done before our popularity is dropped too much. We did have a couple of things. The assassination of Chuck. Yikes. We have an assassination. Reproduction of embryonic stem cell research has finally paid off. So this actually, with the renew replacement therapy, embryonic cells are injected near the damaged zones. When they multiply into spinal cord cells, they replace the damaged tissue. In time, the nervous cells can even restore the lost motor functions. So basically, people who are paralyzed, they're finally going to be able to recover from their paralysis. So this is a huge scientific discovery toward the United States. So we're going to go ahead and take advantage of it. Do you desire to patent it and render it commercially accessible to the entire world? Yes, we're going to patent that, since that it is actually something that is helpful toward the rest of the world. We want to go ahead and contribute to that, so we're going to go ahead and allow that to be patented and sold as a commercial entity. So we're going to allow that to happen, so we are able to do that. Military shoots to kill.
According to your directives, the fire was engaged and...
Yeah, you're just blaming me. Whatever, that's your issue. 4% unemployment, very, very good. Better than the, like, 15% unemployment that it's actually at right now. $470 million for that. We're going to go ahead and say yes to that. We're not suffering anything.
12 seconds later.
First quarter GDP down by 4.8%, much worse than estimated.
There is a recession. We are officially in some sort of recession right now. We are not going to be meeting with the Jihadist Caliphate in there. So there's a couple of things that we have actually been doing. We have RFDI chips. Those are really good. So what we are going to be doing, we need to start getting on top of this recession situation. So if we go over here, we are actually in a negative, very, very negative 7.63% growth rate right now. This is at the beginning of 2020. We are entering the new year, the new decade, with a recession. This is the first time I've actually ever suffered a recession such as this. Now, it actually is not as a recession until you have 2 consecutive quarters of growth that are in the negative. So until we actually have that situation where we are going through 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth, then that is going to be an official recession. But we need to stop this from happening. We need to stop the growth rate from going down so much. We are actually in a shrinking economy. So this right here is projecting that we are going to lose about 7% of our current GDP right now. So just to make sure that we are going to do that, we're going to actually invite someone over for a meeting. So what we need to do, we need to actually instigate some growth. So what we're going to do, we're going to actually go to an OPEC country, and we are going to ask for oil. So to get a better situation on our oil situation, actually, before we do that, we need to start concentrating on our domestic sort of situation. So 65.2% of our electricity is actually being siphoned from fossil electricity. Well, 8.1% is coming from nuclear electricity, 6.9% is coming from 3G EPR electricity. So what the situation actually is that we do actually have this energy surplus, but we need to make sure that we are able to stay on top of it. We have a lot of nuclear power plants that are on the way to being commissioned, so this is going to probably get us an extremely high amount of electricity in the near future. So what we need to do, let's go ahead and actually get for 10 of these offshore offshore wind power plants. And that's actually going to get us a little more electricity. Look at all that, only 0.61, and we're supposed to be getting about 3 terawatts off of these. So we're going to say no to that. Let's go over here and see. So we actually did discover CO2 capture, the process of that. Budget deficit is at 2.04%, and the debt service or annual debt reimbursement level will rise by the new year to $462 billion. So that's how much we're spending a year on our debt servicing. So then right here, look at this.
For the end of the year based on calculations that we made last month. This is not good. Our economy is about to collapse.
He says that our economy is about to collapse, which I don't think it's actually going to collapse. At the same time, we need to make sure that we are able to get on top of this debt situation, which is actually not even our debt problem. We are only spending about 10.2% of our budget on the debt reimbursement. However, our negative growth rate is affecting our economy so much that it actually is, hindering the amount of money that we're actually making. So what we can actually do is probably just come come over here. We're going to go over to some of our sectors, and we're going to start subsidizing them. So what I'm actually going to be concentrating on is a lot of these bigger, you know, such as steel. Steel is something that is actually extremely important, so we're going to go ahead and fund that with about $1.5 billion worth of subsidies from the federal government. That actually increased our production rate by about 0.1%, which is still a little good, you know, compared to the 30% that we are consuming worldwide. That's not exactly good. As long as we have a way to actually grow the sector, then we're actually going to be able to get on top of it. So if we actually... So custom duties, okay, so this is something you don't want to do as long as you know what you're doing. So whenever you go over the custom duties, it's actually going to be able to help that sector a little bit. So 5% is going to be your max that you can actually do throughout the entire economy. All economic sectors, you only are allowed to do 5% overall. This is on every single... Like, if you wanted to put, like, an overall custom duty on all of your sectors, then the WHO would actually get upset at you. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to be doing a 5% custom duty on steel, so I can actually emphasize a little bit more local production instead of relying on the world to actually suit my needs. So what I'm actually going to go ahead and do, we're going to go over here to the world, we're going to go to production, and we're going to find the country that we can actually import it from. So if we actually import it from China, China's going to be able to get it to us at a really cheap price, lower than what we are actually buying it at. We also have the option of going to Russia, Germany, Brazil, even Turkey. Turkey would actually be probably a really good one. If I can actually do... The Chinese could probably get it to us at a cheaper price. It looks like the Turks actually have it just slightly higher than that. So, but because I actually do want to have stronger relations with Turkey, that would actually be beneficial if I actually did it. Well, actually, Turkey would actually be able to give it to us. The sale price, the way they're wanting to sell it, is actually way cheaper than China. So Turkey is actually going to be our biggest trading partner in this scenario. Let's go ahead and invite them over for a meeting. Let's do it this weekend. And then let's go over to that meeting and make sure that we are able to do that. It's a lot of good approval for that industry subsidization that we actually did. I don't even know if subsidization is a word. Confidential information by the Velusi-Slutin government. They have the intention to secretly produce nuclear missiles. This is pretty bad, but we're not going to be able to do anything against them. We probably wouldn't want to do anything against them. Again, they are in the WHO. We could probably actually get sanctions against them, but we wouldn't be able to do anything against them in the Security Council as they are a permanent member. So if that is actually an option, we could actually do that if the Russians don't do what we want. But right now, I don't have any reason to actually reveal that to the world unless I want to really do something against their government. Let's see how much aid I'm giving them. We're not giving them any aid at all. So in response to the way that we actually want to start approaching Turkey, let's actually introduce them with $500 million in grants to development of their country. And then let's go over to them. Let's go ahead and do the meeting with them, and let's import some steel. Let's go over here to steel, 25 million tons worth of steel. It's going to actually be pretty good. We're only consuming about 608 million tons while we're producing 90 million tons. The Turks are actually going to be able to sell us a pretty substantial amount of that. And look at that, 831 to 1449. So we're going to be able to get this and negotiated to an actually good sale price. And I'm going to lower it down to 798, but hopefully their next offer is actually going to be significantly lower than the 1449. So let's go ahead and do that. Yikes. National production of this good steel does not appear to be sufficient to meet the combined needs of your country and Turkey's needs. So let's go back. Let's try to... What about oil? Oil already under contract. Look at this. Jesus Christ. That is the world production of oil. The world, create a new agreement. We already have a oil agreement with Mexico, so this is all the other world's stuff, I guess. So we already have a contract with Mexico. That's going to be one thing. If we want to import more oil, I think we would probably just want to go to the Saudis. Let's do rice. No. What else do we really need? Steel. Let's try to get some steel. Let's do 10 million tons. 798. Okay, so 10.3 million tons is going to be their cap. So let's lower it to 968. 1127. That's going to be pretty good. So let's go ahead and get this done. We're going to call this the Ankara Agreement. And again, we're in February, so we're still waiting for our big entrance into the presidential election, which is coming up in November. All right, in order to mitigate this recession, so what we're actually going to go ahead and do is we're going to reduce some of the income taxes. So what I'm actually going to do, we're going to reduce the low and middle income bracket. It's going to cost us about $65 billion. We're going to, in turn, increase the highest bracket, which is going to mitigate about $20 billion. So let's go ahead and at least see what the opinion on this would actually be. It would pass the House and Senate by about 70%. That'd actually be pretty good. So let's go ahead and confirm that and see how that actually turns out. That's going to pass, so that's really good. So at least we mitigate some of the effects of this recession and take the burden off of the people of the United States. In return, actually, we're going to take out more of the employer's Social Security payments. So this is going to mitigate the other $20 billion that we actually lost. So in return, we're going to go ahead and increase the employer's Social Security payments. That actually barely passes it, but instead of me clicking confirm, it actually clicked confirm itself. But that's going to pass anyway. Let's go ahead and see what the public reaction to that is going to be. Socially, they actually like it. Purchasing power, they like it because they'll reduce taxes. Public finances are actually really good, but employment actually did not like that. The employment sector really did not like the increase of taxes, but in order, again, to mitigate that recession, we really need to stay on top of that taxing situation, which is extremely beneficial to this. So what I'm actually going to go ahead and do, we're going to increase this to 1.38 million active duty troops. That's going to help us in making sure that the military is prepared for any conflicts that arise throughout the world. We're going to go ahead and shoot for about 1.5 million active duty troops. We have riots all across the country. It looks like the sects are acting up again. Hopefully we don't have to actually illegalize these sects because they are obviously a problem right now. I don't know if we would actually have any sort of justification to do so. Hopefully we actually do if it gets to that point. Alright, and we are back finally. So that was a pretty messed up way of actually dealing with a lot of these situations. So what I am actually going to show you is a pretty big event that actually happened while these riots were happening. So we got finally subdued that. So big congratulations to the Republic of Georgia that we finally got rid of a terrorist organization. We actually did. That's student unions leaders. Let's go ahead and refuse to cover that up. I don't care. I don't want to risk trying to get impeached because of that situation. But we have an official congratulations by the Republic of Georgia. The Minister of Foreign Affairs contacted us and said, "Mr. President, my government is pleased with the operation carried out by your country against South Ossetia Autonomous League's members. Even if we do not encourage the special operations of foreign agents in our country, our nation can only rejoice at the result of this initiative, which will contribute to improving relations between our two populations." So in return, we're going to give them more aid. We're going to go ahead, let's go ahead and increase that by about $1 billion. Give them $2 billion worth of aid. United States and Georgia are going to be extremely close in the coming months and years. Hopefully we win re-election so we can actually try to put a military base in the Republic of Georgia. And basically this guy actually just explains that we got rid of the terrorist organization. So another thing that actually was a huge issue was this right here. So right here we actually did pass the law on employer Social Security payments, and so in return the Secretary of the Economy actually contacted us and said, "Mr. President, the population as a whole has a light tax policy in this country. It is a pity that businesses do not profit from the same advantages, particularly in the industrial area, a true source of job creation population and GDP. So he's basically saying that the increase in the contributions toward the federal government actually do hurt businesses. So if we need to, that is, again, this is only going to be temporary. We are only doing that to mitigate the recession that we are currently trying to stave off. We are actually doing extremely well. Our growth rate has actually jumped from negative 10% all the way up to negative 1.9%. So we are doing extremely well to mitigate this possible recession. If we actually do this, this is going to be an extremely light recession. Hopefully we don't actually, like, you know, press this off into the rest of the world. Let's actually check on the other countries, because basically usually whenever one country goes through a recession, other countries actually do go through a recession. So before we actually go today, I'm going to check on the growth rate throughout the world, because we need to make sure that the entire world is not going through a similar recession that we are. And it looks like that the world is not going through it. It looks like this is only compared to comparable countries such as Syria, Iran, the Sudans, both Sudans, Argentina, and the United States are suffering some sort of light mitigated recession. It does look like that a couple other countries, especially in, like, it looks like Syria is similar to where we were, Iran is similar to where we were, and then the United States negative 4.29. That is actually kind of inaccurate. Looks like Argentina is also suffering up negative 2.13% growth rate. So hopefully these recessions are kind of staved off, especially in the United States. We have an extreme grasp on the rest of the world economies, so we really do not need to slip into something that we cannot get out of, which I am again confident that we can do that. We are the United States. We have the strongest economy in the world. And before we go, let's go ahead and do what the Secretary of the Economy said and start concentrating on things such as the industrial sector. We need to start increasing funding toward sectors such as these, especially services. Services is actually going to be an extremely good sort of thing to grow over the next couple of years. So synthetic fibers, let's go ahead and give that about $350 million worth of funding. And then utility vehicles, that's going to be another one. Let's go ahead and give that one $100 million worth of subsidies. And then let's go to railway construction. Plastic actually would be pretty cool. Let's give that $50 million. Robotics, let's do that with $50 million. And then let's go to silver. Silver would be pretty cool. Let's go ahead and give that $100 million. And then let's go to plastics I've already done. Rare earth oxides I've already done. So actually, speaking of rare earth oxides, if you actually have been paying attention to the world economy, you will actually know, and I actually saw a story about this, the United States actually, I believe, there's a proposal, or this is actually a policy enacted by the federal government of the United States, but basically they are actually stopping the importation and purchasing of rare earth oxides from China because of the coronavirus pandemic. So basically, rare earth oxides are usually just these, like, just regular rarer sort of things that you can actually find inside of the ground, and you can use them for several different purposes. I don't know really what purposes you can use them for, but they are actually really cool. So I'm actually going to give this sector $500 million in grants, and we're actually going to exonerate that sector. And they only need water supply networks, so let's go all the way down. Let's go to water supply networks, and let's actually federalize the entire sector. Let's not federalize the entire sector. That's going to be way too expensive for us. So in turn, let's give them $1.5 billion. Actually, since it's literally the lifeline of our entire agricultural sector, let's give it $5 billion worth of funding. That would actually be extremely beneficial toward the water supply network sector. That actually increased the production by about 2%. So, should we increase it to $10 billion or even $15 billion? Should we? Let's do $10 billion just to start off. Hopefully it doesn't become, literally we could become self-sufficient. Let's add another $2 billion. Let's do $12 billion on that. And it looks like we hit some sort of cap. Let's go ahead and minimize that to $10 billion for the water supply network. And again, that is really because it has such a high grasp on the agricultural sector that we just really need to get that get this sector going. So if we actually get the consumption or the production above the consumption, that would actually be really good. So hopefully we get that trade balance start to go down. We're making $73 billion in sales, and then profits are only $596 million. So hopefully the $10 billion actually makes up for it. If we can actually get this to above $10 billion, that will be extremely good for our economy. So, alright guys, if you guys like this, go ahead and leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Hopefully we actually do mitigate this recession and get out of this recession in the next episode before we hit the presidential election. So if you guys like this, go ahead and leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and I will see you guys in the next episode.